While searching the world for expensive items, we came across some of the priciest seasonings we use to flavor our food. From cinnamon to bamboo salt, cloves to river reed salt. Join us as we revisit what makes these spices and salts so expensive. First, we're heading to South Korea to see why bamboo salt is the most expensive salt in the world. This is standard sea salt. But after 30 days, it'll become this. High-quality bamboo salt costs almost $100 for an 8.5-ounce jar, making it the most expensive salt in the world. So what is bamboo salt used for? And why is it so expensive? For hundreds of years, Koreans have used bamboo salt for cooking and as a form of traditional medicine. It's made by placing sea salt inside of bamboo and roasting it at a high temperature. The goal is to infuse the salt with minerals from the bamboo and to remove any impurities. But the premium compared to other types of salt is steep. 9 times roasted bamboo salt, sometimes referred to as purple bamboo salt, can cost over 10 times the price of pink Himalayan salt. Most of that cost comes from the labor-intensive process. Every single step is done by hand.
처음 천일염을 대나무통에 넣어서 맨 마지막 9번째 용융을 해서 완제품 포장이 될 때까지 한 달에서 한 달 45일 정도, 50일 정도, 이 정도 기간이 소요되고 있습니다.
The process starts by cutting 3-year-old bamboo into uniform trunks, leaving one side closed as a container for the salt. Sea salt from the west coast of Korea is densely packed by hand into the bamboo. Workers load filled bamboo onto a cart and push it into a kiln. Traditionally, only pine logs are used. This process takes around 12 to 14 hours. Baking everything at over 800 degrees Celsius burns away the bamboo, leaving a column of salt. But the process has only just begun.
그 다음에 그것을 소금 기둥을 다시 분쇄해서 대나무 채우는 것을 2번, 그것을 반복해서 하는 것이 8번을 하는 거죠.
The 9th and final roast is the hottest, at over 1,000 degrees Celsius. It's fired in a special kiln and operated by an expert. Shin Tae-jun has been making bamboo salt for over 20 years. That experience is extremely important because any error at this stage could result in wasting a month of work. At this temperature, the salt and bamboo completely melt and drain into a mold. After a few days of cooling, a blackened rock-like structure remains. This is 9 times roasted bamboo salt. Workers carefully break this down by hand, trying not to waste any material. After a month of work, it's ready to be packaged and sold.
천일염을 대나무통에 넣고 굽게 되면은 천일염 속에 있는 안 좋은 것들, 미세 플라스틱이라든지 천일염 속에 안 좋은 것들을 많이 순화시키는 과정을 거치게 되고요. 그리고 대나무가 타면서 대나무 기름이 나오게 됩니다. 그 대나무 기름을 소금이 자꾸 흡수해서 그 대나무 속에 있는 좋은 성분들을 소금이 점점 농축하게 되는 거고요.
The final price varies depending on where you buy it and what form it's in. But 9 times roasted bamboo salt doesn't come cheap.
죽염을 이제 맨 마지막 9번째까지 구워진 죽염 기준으로 말씀을 드리면 키로당 한 20만 원 정도에서 한 25만 원 선, 이 정도 가격을 생각하시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 죽염이 비싼 거는 한국 사람들도 동일하게 인지를 하고 있는 거고요. 그 가치를 알기 때문에 죽염이 비싸더라도 믿고 또 구입한다고 생각합니다.
The health benefits of food have always played an important role in Korean culture. For centuries, bamboo salt baked 2 to 3 times has been used in traditional Korean medicine. But in the 20th century, the 9 times roasting process was developed. Manufacturers say this process is the lowest toxicity and highest mineral content. Today, it's used for cooking, toothpaste, soap, and various remedies.
일단은 죽염도 소금이다 보니까 짠맛은 있고요. 짜면서도 죽염만의 또 독특한 맛이 있어요. 그 대나무 속에 있는 좋은 성분들을 소금이 자꾸 흡수하면서 죽염의 독특한 계란 노른자 맛 같은 맛이 많이 구워진 걸수록 점점 진해지게 되고요. 그다음에 쓴맛은 없고 계란 노른자 같은 그런 맛이 점점.
Proponents of bamboo salt say that it can help with everything from digestion to oral health, skincare, and inflammation, and that it even has anti-cancer effects. The proposed medical benefits have likely helped it maintain its high price, but there hasn't been enough scientific study to fully back up all of these claims. Studies have shown that bamboo salt contains higher levels of iron, potassium, and calcium compared to regular sea salt, and that it could improve your immune system. But these beneficial minerals constitute only a small percentage. The majority of bamboo salt is sodium chloride. Even with lower toxicity, it's unclear how potent the health benefits are. In 2016, the WHO wrote in a report that the composition of specialty salts poses no toxicological risks, but does not offer any relevant nutritional benefits either. The full benefits of bamboo salt compared to sea salt have yet to be extensively researched. But despite that, bamboo salt continues to be popular. Ceylon cinnamon is native to just one region of the world, and producing it requires hours of delicate work. Even the most skilled workers can make only a few pounds of quills a day. 1 pound of cinnamon quills can cost $27, but not all spices labeled cinnamon are the Ceylon variety. Many in the Western market are actually cheaper types of cinnamon called cassia. So what makes Ceylon cinnamon so favorable, and why is it so expensive? Ceylon cinnamon is named after the Old British name for Sri Lanka, and it is often considered real cinnamon. It is made from the dried inner bark of a tree called Cinnamomum verum. Growing these trees is an investment. Farmers must wait 4 years after a tree is planted before they can begin harvesting. At harvest, workers break down the branches early in the morning when the bark is still moist.
ඒ කියන්නේ උදෙන්ම කපන් ගිය තරමට තමයි ගෙදර වැඩ ටික ඉහත ඉවර කරගන්න ඕනේ. තව වේලීමත් ගහ හුලං වැඩිවීමත් අඩු වෙන උදෙන්ම කැපුවා. දවල්ට කැපුවම ගහ වේලුන් දෙනවා. ඔකට ගහ අර වැඩ කරගන්න අමාරුයි.
Ruwampura must continuously care for the trees throughout the year. Otherwise, the branches won't be suitable for making cinnamon at all.
ඉන්නේ කරන්න කියන්නේ දැන් ඒකේ ගහ වැඩක් නේ කරතිය විදිය මෝරලා පාට තියනවානේ ගහ ඇද්ද වෙලා තියනවානේ ඒව කපන්න ඕන කෙලින් තියන එක තමයි ඉතුරු කරන්න ඕන හොඳට කුරුඳු තියනවා නම් මාස 8න් අතට කපන්න පුළුවන් නැත්නම් අවුරුද්දට එකපාරයි.
The rigorous nature of this job has only just begun. Now peelers must do the delicate and essential work of stripping the inner bark of each branch by hand.
දැන් අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා කුරුඳු කපාගෙන එනවා ඊට පස්සේ ගැට පහින්න ඕන. ගැට පැහැලා ඊට පස්සේ කුරුඳු උද කුඩ අරින්න ඕන. ඊට පස්සේ අපි කරන්නේ මේ අරගෙන තලන්න ගත්තාම මේකෙන් මෙහෙම හොඳට ගහ හොඳට බුරුල් කරලා මේකෙන් තමයි බුරුල් කරගන්නේ.
This is the most labor-intensive part of the process, and it's not as easy as simply shaving the outside of the bark as you would the skin from a potato. To produce the most valuable cinnamon, the bark must be made extremely thin. The thinner the quills are, the more costly they will be. Ruwampura has spent 40 years mastering this skill. Soon after the bark is removed, each piece dries under the sun and curls up within a few minutes. After drying, the small pieces are stuffed inside a straight piece of bark, forming one 42-inch quill. By the end of a long day, workers will have only produced about 3 pounds of quills. Those then need to dry for 3 to 4 days before they're packed into bales and sent off to a separate facility. That's where they'll be graded and officially priced based on their width. P.D. Romanis & Sons buys bales of cinnamon from various peelers. At its facility, quills are graded over 10 scales. The most valuable quills are classified as alba. it takes a peeler 4 times longer to produce 1 kilogram of alba than to produce the same quantity of lower grades.
ඕනේ මේක මිල අධික වෙලා තියෙන ඇත්තටම මේ ඔයගලට පේනවා ඇති මේක පැන්සලක ආකාරයෙන් තමයි තියෙන්නේ කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ කුරුඳු ගහේ පොත්ත ගැලවුවාම පොත්ත අඟලට ඉරීමක්.
The leftover, smaller cuts are turned into ground cinnamon and make up the cheapest form. But even the most valuable quills are often confused with a more widely accessible and cheaper variety of cinnamon.
කුරුඳු වර්ගීකරණ අතර ප්‍රධාන අපේ තරගකාරී කුරුඳු වර්ගයේ ලෙස තියෙන්නේ චයිනා වලින් ඒ වගේ ඉන්දුනීසියාවෙන් වියට්නාමින් එන කාසියා කුරුඳු එක.
Cassia comes from another kind of cinnamon tree called Cinnamomum cassia, and it doesn't require as much time or effort to make. Cassia bark is hard and sturdy, so quills are made as one curled piece of bark without the fillings. Ceylon cinnamon, on the other hand, is tender and soft and needs those inner layers to prevent the quill from breaking.
ඒ මොකද මේ පතුරු අර කාසියා කුරුඳු වගේ නිකන් දුන්නොත් ඇත්තටම මේකේ වටිනාකමක් නැහැ. මොකද මේක වටිනාකම ආයෙත් තියෙන අපි මේ කූරු වශයෙන් නිෂ්පාදනය කරන නිසා.
Cassia is very fragrant and brown, whereas real cinnamon is paler with a milder flavor. Cassia also contains, on average, higher levels of coumarin, an organic compound that can cause liver damage if consumed in large amounts. This is why researchers say Ceylon cinnamon is ultimately the healthier option. But if you're buying cinnamon in the US, it can be hard to tell the difference between them. Part of the confusion between the two comes from the use of the label cinnamon. In the US, it is legal to label both Ceylon and Cassia cinnamon as cinnamon, while in the UK and other countries, Cassia must be labeled Cassia and cannot be classified simply as cinnamon. Regardless of what it's called in the US, consumers worldwide prefer the real thing. In 2018, Ceylon accounted for more global cinnamon revenue than any other variety. But even as demand is expected to grow through 2025, climate change poses a serious threat to cinnamon production. In recent years, Sri Lanka has experienced droughts over several months, and these long periods of dry weather can kill cinnamon trees, which need marshy, wet soil to survive. There's also a shortage of cinnamon peelers, another threat to production that's likely to drive up prices. This industry relies on experienced peelers who can practice the difficult work of making these quills over many years.
අනාගතය කියන්නේ දැන් මෙහෙම බාල පරම්පරාව මේකට යොමු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක දැන් අපේ ළමයි වුණත් කැමති නැහැ මේ වතු වලට තාම ඇවිල්ලත් නැහැ. දැන් අවුරුදු 18ක් වෙනවා. නිකම්වත් ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලෝ කැමති නැහැ මේවට මෙයා වෙන්න. ඉතින් අන්න ඒක තමයි තියෙන මේ අනාගතේ සුබ නැහැ වගේ පේනවා. ඉතින් අපිට පුළුවන් කාලෙ ඉතින් අපිට කරද හැකි. ඒක තමයි තියෙන්නේ.
Green cardamom is one of the most expensive spices in the world. Just 1 kilogram of it can sell for $90. But getting that little bit of green cardamom requires a lot of work. Harvesters need to collect 6 kilograms of these small raw pods by hand to produce just 1 kilogram of the spice. So why is it so hard to grow green cardamom? And is that what makes it so expensive? Known as the queen of spices, cardamom comes from small oval-shaped fruits called pods, which contain several black seeds inside. Those seeds are what give green cardamom its uniquely citrusy, sweet flavor and aroma. The green cardamom plant grows in select regions around the world, but it especially thrives in India's Idukki district, where Raja's family has grown the spice for 30 years. After cardamom is planted, farmers must wait 3 years for the plants to mature. When that waiting period is finally over, workers have most of the year, from July to next February, to harvest. While that's a long harvesting period, not all of the pods can be harvested at the same time. And knowing precisely when to harvest is a job for highly skilled workers.
அந்த நம்ம வந்து தோட்டத்தை பார்த்துக்கிட்டே இருந்து பழுக்கிற சமயம் பார்த்து எடுத்துடணும். எடுக்காமல் விட்டாலும் வேஸ்ட் ஆகிரும். முன்னாடி எடுத்தாலும் பிஞ்சாகி அது மார்க்கெட்டில் விலை போகாது, அது வாடகை வராது. அது வந்து எல்லாமே அது பறிக்க முடியாது. அந்த பழம் பறிக்க தெரிஞ்ச பெண்கள் வந்து அதை வந்து தொட்ட உடனே அப்படி வந்து முன்னாடி 5 காய் இருக்கும். 5 காயில் வந்து 2 காய் எடுத்துருவாங்க. ஒன்று பழம், கருங்காய். தொட்ட உடனே வந்தோடனே பழம். ரெண்டாவது வந்து கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டமாக வந்தால் கருங்காய்.
To do the job right, harvesters train for 6 months alongside experienced farmers. This is when they learn to decipher a ripe fruit that can be picked versus a raw pod that is not yet ready to harvest.
அந்த காய் எடுத்தோன்னே இப்போ பழம்னு அது வந்து பழுத்து தெரியாது.
In the end, the plant doesn't yield much. Farmers harvest a maximum of 10 pods on average from each plant. That number of pods produces only about 1.5 teaspoons of ground cardamom. But harvesting is just the beginning. Only after the pods are dried will they look like the green cardamom sold in stores. You can buy cardamom pods, just the black seeds, or ground cardamom, which are the seeds in powdered form. All of the pods head to a separate location to dry for about 18 hours, within a day or so after harvesting. Any delay will cause the pods to decay and lose flavor. Drying also preserves the spice's green color, a factor that directly impacts how valuable a pod will be and what it will be used for.
ஆனால் காய் காற்றோட ஆவியோடு சேர்ந்தது இது வெளியே போயிட்டே இருக்கணும். அப்போ தான் நல்ல கலர் கிடைக்கும்.
From here, the pods are cleaned and sorted. Workers use their hands to push and separate the smaller, lower quality pods through the holes. Each pod is then graded based on its size, weight, and color. Highly valued pods are bigger, greener, and full of seeds. Out of all the cardamom Raja harvests, the majority won't be worth very much. In fact, only a sixth will qualify as good quality, marketable cardamom.
இந்த ஏலக்காய் வந்து ஃபஸ்ட் குவாலிட்டி 8 வருவட்டுன்னு சொல்லுவோம். 8 mm. இது வந்து எக்ஸோ குவாலிட்டி நல்லாயிருக்கும். பார்க்குறதுக்கு இது வந்து விதைகள் அதிகமாக இருக்கும். இது வந்து 1600 ரூபா இன்னைக்கு காஸ்ட்.
Some exported whole grain cardamom pods from other producers can be even costlier, retailing for over 4 times the price at $90 per kilogram. The company's lowest grade costs 900 Indian rupees, or about $12 per kilogram, and can be sold as ground cardamom. Pods with any sign of discoloration or rot aren't marketable and will therefore be rejected.
இது பேர் வாவிடுதல்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. இது வந்து அதிகமாக விளைஞ்சி வெடிச்சிறதுனால இது வந்து இந்த மாதிரி ரிசெக்ஷன் ஆகுது. இது வந்து அழுக்கல்லி ஏலக்காய் அழுகி போச்சு, செடியிலே அழுகி போனதுனால இந்த மாதிரி ஏலக்காய் ஒன்று இருக்காது, உள்ள ஒன்று இருக்காது.
But this whole process could be totally disrupted by changes in weather. If there's too much rain, the pods will rot. If there's not enough, they'll burn out from the sun. More recently, the world's climate crisis and unpredictable weather in India's Idukki district specifically have hurt supplies of green cardamom. The district makes up at least a sixth of global production and roughly 3/4 of India's green cardamom production. But its supply took a hit in recent years, as harsh weather and rains ruined farmers' crops. This drove up the prices of cardamom in 2019, but didn't necessarily benefit small farmers. In order to make a huge profit, farmers need a large inventory. And when cardamom is sold in small amounts by small farmers, most of the payment is used to cover the cost of production only. Raja spends about 15,000 Indian rupees, or about $200 per acre, just on fertilizer. That's between 10 and 15% of the total profits he'll make off that acre. And those profits often don't cover the total Raja must spend on production.
பெரும்பாலும் வந்து நஷ்டம் நஷ்டம் உண்டாகும். புயல் மழை அடித்து காற்றடிக்கும் போது மரம் செடி மரம்லாம் விழுந்து செடியெல்லாம் விழுந்து நஷ்டம் வரும்போது நம்மளுக்கு வந்து கையிலேருந்து பணம் செலவழித்ததை அந்த செடியை வந்து மறுபடியும் நம்ம ரீப்ளான் பண்ணி அதை உண்டாகணும். நமக்கு நஷ்டம்தான் வரும். இது வந்து நம்ம வந்து கையிலேருந்து பணம் செலவழித்து லேபருக்கு சார்ஜு மருந்து உரம் கூலி அதிகமாக வரும்போது எல்லாமே நம்மளுக்கு வந்து சாதகமாக காலநிலை ஒத்து வந்தால் தான் நம்ம வருமானம் எடுக்க முடியும்.
All this considered, the global cardamom market is expected to grow by about $169 million between 2021 and 2025. This is good for the industry, but could present a challenge for farmers unable to meet demand, as the climate crisis continues to threaten the supply of this coveted spice. In the forests of South India, harvesters climb trees as tall as 50 feet to handpick these clove buds. When exported, less than half a pound of these dried cloves costs $30. That's 10 times as much as some cumin. But as they focus on keeping their balance, harvesters must also be careful not to break the buds. If they do, the value of the clove drops significantly, and that's just where the risk begins. To harvest cloves correctly, workers put their lives on the line. So what makes cloves worth the risks? And why are they so expensive? Cloves are the flower buds of clove trees that haven't blossomed yet. When dried, they're commonly used as a spice. A clove's flavor is complex, with notes of sweetness, bitterness, and heat. The oil found in cloves has medicinal properties that make the spice valuable outside of just cooking. Cloves with the round head or crown still intact have the most oil. But to get cloves with the highest possible oil content, highly skilled workers are needed at every stage.
Clove harvesting is a very big job. It's a very risky job. So we have to get special people to do that.
To get to the top of the trees, harvesters like Shibu rely on only a ladder and some rope.
അത് ഈ 3 കയറ് 3 സ്ഥലത്തോട്ട് വലിച്ച് കെട്ടിയാൽ ഈ ഏണി സൈഡ് ഏണി നിൽക്കത്തുള്ളൂ.
He reinforces the bottom of the ladder with mud so it doesn't move as he navigates the tall tree. Shibu ties a sack to his waist and then he starts his climb, working his way from the top of the tree to the bottom. Harvesters can't pick too soon or too late, or the cloves will drop in grade and value. In addition to picking at the exact right time and being careful not to harm the clove bud, they need to be sure not to break the tree branches they climb. Otherwise, the tree will have a lower yield next harvesting season. Navigating all these elements can be extremely dangerous. In Black Rock Estates, harvesting cloves has led to death.
A couple of years back, we lost a worker who was while he was plucking, the lightning struck him. We lost almost about 6 of them. They had paralyzed, like we had to take them, rush them down to the hospital, and they were admitted for a month.
Yet handpicking is the only way farms like Black Rock Estate have managed to keep delivering quality cloves. Because timing is crucial, Charles needs a big team to pick the cloves as soon as they're ready, which is usually mid to late February. Charles can sell the cloves for their highest price in the first 25 days of the harvesting season. The more he can harvest during this time, the better it is for business.
When the clove season is fully on, when we have a very good crop, we get nearly about 300 workers.
During peak harvesting season, these workers make around $30 a day on average. Once the clove clusters are picked, harvesters carefully remove the individual buds from the stalks and leaves. They sift and sort each bud according to its size, age, and whether it has a top. It's best if the circular crown of the clove, where it would otherwise flower, is still intact. This improves the spice's taste and aroma. Even though there are machines to help with this process, Charles prefers to pay for it to be done by hand, to lower the risk of clove damage.
They have clove breaking and sorting with machinery. But still, the half the cloves is damaged in that. We get broken cloves in that. So it's not very good doing it to the machine.
The highest quality cloves were picked at the right time, just before they turned pink or flowered. They're large and plump and still have the crown. Second quality cloves also still have their tops, but they're smaller. They were either picked too early or too late. And the third quality has no crown, with the top having either flowered or broken off. After the sorting, workers leave the cloves out to dry in the sun. High-quality cloves take 3 days to dry under good sunlight. But a quality clove won't always get sold as the highest grade, because official grading doesn't happen until after it's dry. If there's too little or too much sun, the clove's quality drops. Instead of golden brown, it becomes black, and it loses one of its most valuable properties, its oil content. First quality cloves are the most fragrant and have the highest oil content. The headless third quality cloves have the least. And the difference shows in the price. Charles sells his first quality cloves for about $10 a kilogram, and its lowest grade for under $7. Clove oil is mostly made up of the compound eugenol, which is not only responsible for the clove's familiar aroma, but also for its medicinal benefits. Researchers have noted eugenol has antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, pain-relieving, and antioxidant properties. So the demand for cloves goes beyond their culinary uses. Cloves are so sought after in India that Charles is able to sell more than just the buds.
We sell everything, nothing goes to waste. Even the pollen, the dust, everything we sell.
That's also because the cloves he grows, Kanya Kumari cloves, are known for their high oil content and strong aroma. In fact, these cloves were awarded a GI indication in 2021. Charles says Kanya Kumari cloves are the most expensive variety in India.
When you go to the market to buy cloves, the clove price will be about 3 times the price what we give. It will be about 2,000 rupees, where we get only 750.
The retail price is so much higher because of the supply chain. To maximize on profits for the farm, Charles won't sell his cloves directly to consumers, who only buy smaller amounts as needed. Instead, he sells to clove dealers who buy large quantities. Dealers like Franklin Roosevelt then have to keep the cloves fresh until they sell them to retailers. If he doesn't store the cloves properly, their shelf life drops.
ग्लव के लिए एक टेम्परेचर है, उस टेम्परेचर में वो लोग उसको स्टॉक रखते हैं और मोस्टली कोल्ड स्टोरेज में ही जाके उतरता है. मतलब नॉर्मल टेम्परेचर में रहेगा तो माल भी ख़राब हो जाता है और उसका टेस्ट फ्लेवर नहीं रहता है.
To cover the cost of quality control, Franklin sells cloves to stores for almost $12 a kilo. The shops that buy from Franklin have to pay transportation and packaging costs, bringing the retail price of cloves in India even higher. But one of the biggest challenges in every step of the supply chain has been the changing climate.
ज़्यादा बारिश होने की वजह से पेड़ों में फंगस गिर जाता है, तो सारा माल झड़ जाता है. तो जो लैंडलॉर्ड होता है, इसका जो ओनर्स होते हैं, उनको भी हेवी लॉस हो जाता है. और जो लोग इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, जैसे मेरे जैसे जो ट्रेडर्स हैं, वो लोग हम लोग ये बहुत बाहर गांव से लेबर्स बहुत लाते हैं, तो लेबर्स को नौकरी नहीं होता है. हम लोग ट्रेडिंग भी उतना ठीक से कर नहीं पाते.
Between 2018 and 2019, India lost 13 metric tons of cloves due to heavy rainfall. And while the global clove market is expected to grow by 3.5% by 2027, the changing climate may still continue to disproportionately burden clove farmers.
नहीं, अभी फार्मर्स लोगों को इतना उसमें प्रॉफिट नहीं दिख रहा है, क्योंकि वो मैं बोला ना, ऐसे बारिश हो जाता है तो ये सब होता है, और उनको उतना जितना उन्होंने इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है उतना उनको रिटर्न नहीं है. वो है, अगर वो लोग भी अगर ट्रेडिंग लाइन में आते हैं तो ठीक है, लेकिन बहुत कम लोग ही आते हैं, क्योंकि वो लोग इतना रिस्क लेके सब लोग नहीं जाते हैं. इसमें रिस्क लेंगे तो है पैसा मिलता है.
On day one, harvesters cut out these river reeds. And in 8 days, after drying, burning, and filtering, the reeds will produce one of the most expensive salts in the world. Just 1 tablespoon of river reed salt costs about $1 in Kenya. Compare that to the 4 cents it costs locals for the same amount of sea salt. So how do producers make salt from river reeds? And why is it so expensive? River reed salt, or chumvi ya kienyeji, is made from the reeds of the machua plant that grow along the Nzoia River. Once the salt is extracted, it's typically sold in small quantities to chefs and luxury hotel owners in Kenya and abroad. Buyers describe its saltiness as powerful and umami-like.
I buy the river reed salt because of, I will say, the magic in it. The texture is smooth, it is not rough or coarse. For those who have tasted umami from Japan, it tastes almost the same, but this one has more of a sharp taste. So when you're cooking with it, you won't use a lot of it.
Today, only the Bukuzu community in the village of Webuye continues the traditional process of making this rare salt by hand. This is the Nzoia River, and this is Andrew Wanyonyi Sikanga. Andrew and his sons harvest the reeds that grow along the riverbanks. Before they go out to harvest, Andrew starts the morning with a prayer.
Jina la Baba, la Mwana, la Roho Mtakatifu. Amen.
They pray for protection from the dangers they might encounter at the river, like snakes and crocodiles. To avoid coming into contact with them, Andrew and his sons need to harvest early.
Kwa sababu huwa nyoka zinatembea mchana kama jua inakuja, lakini asubuhi baridi iko haitembei. Sasa tunaenda huko kwa sababu ya hiyo vitu bado ingali kwa mashimo.
Today, they're looking for ripe river reeds.
Vile iko hivi ni mrefu kuliko kama sasa hii ni kitoko. Tunalingana. Sasa hii iko na chumvi, lakini bado changa, hakuna chumvi. Ndio sasa tunaangalia kwa urefu wa chumvi yenyewe. Ndio nilikuwa nasema 2 meters kwenda juu, lakini kama iko hivi tunaiacha.
If the reed isn't at least 2 meters tall and the flowers at the top aren't wilted and nearly dried, the concentration of salt will be too low. Andrew hacks away at the ripe reeds, being careful not to uproot the plant or cut too close to the roots. That way, the reeds can regrow more quickly, and the roots can continue to spread onto other rocks. Only reeds with a high salt content make the effort worth it, because from them, Andrew can make enough salt to sell.
Alafu iko ni riski. Alafu saa zingine nini kikuja namna hivi, maji kikuja na kujaa na uchafu, lakini kikuja na miiba kama vile imekuwa hapa namna hivi. Sasa ikifika hapa hivi, usipochunga vizuri, ukianza kukata kumbe umeshika miiba alafu na kutunga. Au saa zingine unajikata hivi vile huyu amejikata hapa saa hii. Sasa hiyo ni changamoto ya hapa.
Though there was a mild injury, today's harvest was a good one. After a long day of navigating the waters of the Nzoia River, Andrew and his sons leave the riverbank with a lot of reeds.
Wa Februari. Sasa hii ndio tumepata na ingine pato ingali iko nyumbani. Tumefurahia leo. Hapa yote vile iko hivi nikichoma itaweza kuwa kama gramu 200 hivi. Hapa itaweza kuwa vijiko gramu 200, vijiko 20.
Those 20 tablespoons will sell for about $20. Now they can begin the long manual process of extracting salt. First, Andrew must dry the reeds. Drying reeds can take 4 days when the skies are sunny, but in cloudier weather, it'll take longer. To begin processing, he has to burn the reeds for 1 to 3 days. Once all the reeds turn to ash, Andrew places them in a large pot with drainage holes. Then he slowly adds water. The water filters through the ashes and holes, each drop collecting at the bottom. He pours those droplets through another filter and into an aluminum pan. Next, he places the pan over an open fire, where the solution is left to boil until the liquid evaporates. Finally, after a full day of work, Andrew is left with this wet, salty paste. The next day, he packs the paste into banana leaves and places them under hot ashes to dry. After 3 hours, the salt hardens. From reed to salt, the process takes at least 8 days. Andrew will sell the salt in the banana leaves. This is the same long process his family has practiced for generations.
Sasa hii miaka 20 na kwa kupata vile walikuwa wanatengeneza, baba wangu ndiye alikuwa anatengeneza, alafu nami nikajifunza kutoka kwa baba yangu mzazi.
It's believed the tradition began in the 17th century when the Bukuzu people migrated eastward from Congo. At the time, areas in western Kenya were cut off from salt routes. So they set out to find a way to extract salt from these aquatic plants. Centuries later, the salt that was made out of necessity became a pricey commodity. At the market, this pack containing just 3 tablespoons of river reed salt costs about $3, and this larger pack, $7. It's likely to sell because local demand is high. Buyers know the intense work put into making this salt, so for them, the price is worth it. Although there aren't studies to confirm it, market sellers say that part of what keeps the salt in high demand locally is the belief it has special medicinal properties. But the most notable feature is its taste. In fact, Andrew's River Reed salt won the title for most unique indigenous salt at an international gastronomy exhibition in Italy in 2014. Slow Food, one of the organizers of the exhibition, established a presidium in 2009 for Kenya's River Reed salt to drive more demand for the product. But fulfilling that demand would require more supply, which is difficult when production is so limited. One of the biggest threats to River Reed salt production is climate change. According to Slow Food, the growing population in Kenya has led to deforestation. Indigenous trees along the Nzoia River have long held soil particles together and provided shade, keeping temperatures stable. But the loss of these trees, along with higher temperatures, unstable river levels, and landslides, has contributed to the loss of river reeds. Andrew tried growing the reeds with other water sources, but couldn't get the same outcome.
Hapo hata mbeleni nilikuwa nimekumbuka hiyo, alafu nikapandako huku nyumbani. Na vile nilipanda nyumbani ikakua, ikafika mahali namna hivi. Na nikileta maji nyingine ya kunyunyiza inaenda chini. Lakini nikichukua maji ya Nzoia inafurahi, inaenda juu. Lakini tu mradi maji ya Nzoia peke yake. Nimefanya hiyo utafiti, maji nyingine inakataa.
In addition to conservation efforts like replanting indigenous trees, Slow Food is working on creating more marshy areas for the reeds to grow.
Since the river reed salt really does well with the waters from the river, we were thinking that if we try a little bit to divert some of these water from the river and have a marshy area plus some of the rocks, we can actually try to see whether we can increase the number of reeds, because I know that as the people continue knowing about this particular salt, there will be high demand.
This project, along with increased commercial exposure of river reed salt, hopes to help producers like Andrew and his sons keep their work alive for generations to come.